Hello everyone, Alistair Gold here. Tottenham Hotspur victory, sunny day outside. All is right with the world for just a little while at least. I got a bit of a different experience of going to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium yesterday. My mate was taking his little boy Lucas for the first time. And I got to kind of see it all through a young child's eyes again. That experience of walking round the corner after you've come out of White Hart Lane station, peering around and seeing essentially a spaceship landed in Tottenham High Road. And yeah, it was quite cool, to be honest. To kind of, I think maybe you come a bit, blasé about it when you're there, every other week or so. Obviously, I was only there for 7 days before for the under-21s game as well, and you kind of maybe do take it for granted a bit, and just see how kind of almost overwhelmed he was by it. It was very cool. And just the experience of walking past those two stalls with all the scarves and the hats and everything that they're selling, and then going in the megastore, which I haven't gone in, or whatever it's called nowadays, Tottenham Experience, whatever it is. Haven't been in there for probably a couple of years, maybe. And just seeing kind of the look on his face, just the wide-eyed look as he looked around everything, and then obviously heading inside the stadium. You kind of forget that for the next generation, what it's all going to be like, and what football's going to be like, and whether it will be different. Thankfully, they've ditched the blue cards ideas and sin bins. That's out of the way. But who knows? Who knows when young Lucas is older, what Tottenham Hotspur team he will be supporting, what they'll look like, how they'll have gone. It made me feel very, very old suddenly. But it was nice to kind of be grounded a bit, I guess, as well. And, and he got a victory. His prediction actually was 2-1 with Sonny scoring the last goals. He was almost spot on, young Lucas. 3-1 with Sonny scoring the last goal. It was a strange game in terms of there's a kind of a contrast of emotions. The first half was one of those where, again, we were left kind of thinking like, oh, that wasn't great. That wasn't particularly inspiring. That wasn't particularly kind of high-intensity, aggressive football. But then, I guess, when you kind of step back at it and look at it, maybe the bigger picture, or look at it, I guess, maybe even more tactically, I don't know. It was another team that have come to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium and thought, we know how to play you lot. And this is many, many years. This is stretching way beyond the Postecoglou era. Let's come here. Let's sit with essentially 10 men pretty much behind the ball. Once in a while, we'll lob it up the pitch and try and break. But ultimately, you try and break us down. And that kind of plays its part in what looks like dull football from the home side, because you are playing it side to side to side, trying to prod and find some kind of opening. And yeah, of course, there could have been more dynamism in certain things they did, and they could have tried to draw men out of position. But it was a game of patience. And you look at it, and that first half, Timo Werner, massive chance, puts that away midway through the first half. Completely different game. The game opens up. I would go as far to say Spurs probably win that 3 or 4-0. Because you could see that in the second half, as soon as Palace had to come out of their positions, they were done for. So had that happened earlier on, we're talking about a completely different game. We're talking about how Spurs opened up Palace with that big chance first half, got around the way of playing the defensive kind of setup, bang, it's a completely different game. And that's kind of, I guess, the fine margins of things, and especially when, they had that one rare opportunity where they go up the pitch and Eze scores a lovely free kick. You can have question marks over maybe Vicario's positioning, the wall, whatever you want to say. But for me, it was a lovely free kick. But Spurs got the job done. They did. It's kind of one of those where I had a different report all ready to write, and the things I was writing, it was kind of like, classic encounter. Spurs can't break through. They lose 1-0 to a team that's barely got out of their own half. We've been here before. But instead, we're talking about a 3-1 victory where Spurs found a way through, 3 ways through a very defensive setup. And that's kind of exactly what they're meant to do. We see, the teams, the title-winning teams go to teams that are set up defensively, and we see them struggle. I mean, Liverpool, I know they've obviously got injury issues at the moment, but we saw them essentially getting a 99th minute winner, controversial one, of course, but, struggling to break down Nottingham Forest. And We've seen this. I've seen City play against teams that struggle. I've seen them play against Spurs and struggle to break them down. So it's one of those where I think I go to, and this is me included, I'm absolutely not saying this to everyone else, this is me included. The go-to thinking is, oh, this is boring, this is dull. Where's the life in the team? You know, where's the ability to cut? Where's the talent? Where's the magic? Where's the whatever? But ultimately, sometimes a team just sits there and is very organised and does their job defensively and makes it very difficult. And it creates games like that. And this was kind of, in a way, the team that Spurs were becoming, you know, in their games against the... I mean, just to give you an idea of the difference in the stats, it's just incredible. Spurs completed 728 passes. Palace had 156. 156. And Spurs had 78% possession on the day. I think the first half was 82%. It was just obscene how little Palace were really looking to have the ball. They were just sitting. It was like a training ground thing. I mean, they were so deep, they might as well have been under the pitch, driving around in the carts in that F1 drive thing. They were so deep. It was incredible. And like I say, Timo Werner puts that away. Completely different game, and maybe not a different scoreline. Well, maybe it was. I don't even know if Palace would have scored, but who knows? Butterfly effect and all that sort of stuff we spoke about before. But look, Timo Werner did his job. He did manage to put that behind him. 77th minute equaliser. Spurs' streak is now 38 games in a row that they've scored in the Premier League, which of course is the equivalent of an entire Premier League season. And then 3 goals in 11 minutes in all to put it away. And, you know, Oliver Glasner, second game in charge. Obviously, they won their first game against 10-men Burnley. This game, yeah, they came with a very set game plan, which was clear to see. Because I was told before the game, well, you know, they're going to be playing the 3-4-3. That was not a 3-4-3. That was a back five. They just sat there, which made it very difficult for kind of... There was just so little space for the wingers to kind of do their jobs, and the fullbacks trying to get forward. They were just kind of running into this mass of bodies. It's a difficult, you know, way to play the game. Spurs had 14 shots on goal, 6 on target. They had 11 corners. Palace had 1 corner, 4 shots, 1 on target. I think they had certainly... I remember Vicario coming out and making quite a brave save that got a kick in the stomach for... He made another very good save, which was offside. There was an opportunity when I think Emerson stopped to run through, but that was offside as well. Mickey van der Ven obviously made a challenge on Mateta that got him injured. I feared for him at one point. He really looked to be struggling. But other than that, I'm trying to remember any moments when, other than the free kick, when Palace got out of their half, pretty much. So yeah, I understood the frustration. I actually saw some people on social media still being angry after the game. It was almost like the result hadn't changed. They were ready to be angry. You're not going to change this. I want to moan. And yeah, it was some nice bits of football in there as the game wore on. Obviously, Sonny hit the post as well, didn't he, in the second half as well. And they just started to play. They just started to open them up a little bit more in the second half. Whatever was kind of tweaked or changed in the second half by Postecoglou. Mainly for me, the Brennan Johnson change. I think that was the big thing as well. And Postecoglou was quite happy with the entire day, really. I asked him, had to ask the first question, the old boring, what did you make of that? Question, which I'll often get looked to do because no one else wants to do it. And he said, I was pleased with the whole game. First half was a difficult half for us because when a team sits so deep and we had to initiate the play, we had to stay really patient and make sure you work the opposition. And I felt we did that. We didn't create a lot, but we had a couple of great chances. You need that goal to break open a team that is going to sit so deep. I still felt like we were putting enough work into them that at some point we'd be able to break them. Obviously, we conceded, which was disappointing because apart from the free kick, they didn't really threaten us at all. You're looking for a reaction, and I thought the reaction was outstanding. They just had a real belief today in our processes and our football, and I'm really pleased with the outcome. And it was quite kind of fitting, I guess, that after Timo Werner scored the goal, which was fitting in itself because, you know, it was a big moment for him, his first Tottenham Hotspur goal. But it was actually quite fitting as well that the 2 goals that came after were born of the leadership group. We had James Maddison, very quick, clever throw from Emerson Royal, finds James Maddison, who equally clever lob into the box because he can see Romero in there. I have no idea why Romero was up there. I'm trying to think back. Maybe there was a free kick just before it that he was up there for, but I was like, what is he doing all the way up there? Thank goodness he was, because he's up there to kind of nod the ball past the keeper, Johnson, into the net. So that's one. Two vice-captains combining, and then, of course, Sonny. Brennan Johnson playing his part again, and Sonny racing through, pretty much putting away the kind of chance that Werner didn't in the first half. It's quite interesting. Do you remember way back when we used to kind of think like, oh, Sonny's running through, oh, he's going to overthink it and not be able to, he's kind of maybe do what Werner did. And whereas with Kane would run through, you knew it was always going to go into the net. Whereas I think Sonny has just improved so much over the years that now Sonny's the one going through that we expect him to score. Kind of shows just what a world-class player he is, really, and the way he's gone with his development as well. And he was asked after the game about what was the key thing about the match, and he said 3 points. Simple as that. We tried to show our football that we were missing a little bit of something in terms of the intensity, the joy, the hard work. They were all key words. And today I think we really showed good character, especially when we went 1-0 down, but we showed really good character and a good performance. We had to be patient because in the first half they were sitting back and the way they play, it was their plan. And until the second half, it worked fantastically for them. But we wanted to stay calm and get one clear chance like we had with Timo in his equaliser. And obviously, results-wise, it just keep Spurs up there. And I'm recording this before United play City, so I don't know the outcome of that game. But if City were to win, then that gap is there, isn't it, behind, and it kind of is on Spurs to really focus on what's in front of them or above them, I guess is the way to put it. And I thought it was quite interesting because it was George Sessions from PA that pointed out, because I wasn't at the Wolves game, I was watching from afar, and he said it, and this is very well. Depends your definition of very interesting. It was very interesting to someone like me that Wolves in the last game won the coin toss and decided to put Spurs facing the south stand in the first half rather than the second. Whereas obviously yesterday they're attacking towards the south stand in the second half, and once again they score late goals. I don't think it's any coincidence. Something about that that south stand. As the expression that's been used before, it almost sucks the ball into the net. The noise that comes from it pushes the players on. They all want to celebrate in front of it as well. And there's been so many late goals scored there, and obviously 3 in 11 minutes yesterday. So that's quite interesting. I wonder if teams in the future will cotton on to that, and if they win the coin toss, try to get Spurs to kick the other way for the second half, and face that way in the first half. But little bit of interesting trivia from George there. But yeah, for me, turning point was Brennan Johnson, which I love that. I love that he is the guy that is making an impact. You know why I love that. He's 22 years old, got stick for no real reason whatsoever when he's adapting to a new club, and I think he's becoming a valuable part of this Postecoglou squad already. He just essentially was put on the pitch. You can just imagine Postecoglou saying to him, go out there and be an absolute pain in the backside to them. And he was. The goal, Joachim Andersen, who was linked with Spurs, I remember Spurs seriously looked at him a couple of years ago. He was given a torrid time by Johnson. He first got his foot in there. Andersen then slipped over. Johnson then got the ball back, knocked it through. I think it was Lerma was almost going to get there first, but in a really weak challenge, Johnson had more strength, got there, and again, another one of those balls he puts across the face of goal, and Werner slams it home. And also, Sonny's goal. I've seen some people try to say, oh, it was a ricochet, or whatever. Johnson's putting himself in there, makes the challenge. I think it was Udogie lost the ball. He was trying to hold it up. Johnson gets in there, puts his foot in, and it's a tackle that ends up stabbing the ball forward to Son. Son runs through, plants it in the bottom right corner. So, to make an impact like that, 2 assists from the bench as well. And I mean, the first goal, especially, winger to winger, it's the kind of goal that Postecoglou drills on the Hotspur Way pitches. We talk about it all the time, the low ball from one side of the goal to the other. And that's the key, is the likes of Kulusevski and Johnson and Werner and Son when he plays out there as well. And it will be Solomon when he comes back too, and Brian Hill if he plays. Wasn't even on the bench yesterday. Dane Scarlett had his spot. It's about whenever the ball is on the other side of the pitch, get in the other side. With Conte, it was the wing-backs. Now it's the wingers and the full-backs as well. But yeah, it's... I just thought it was really nice. For a guy, who's had to restrict his Instagram post because of the stick he was getting and who can comment underneath them, he's racking up those numbers nicely. I looked into it. 6 goal involvements in his past 9 Premier League matches. 4 assists, 2 goals for Johnson. In all, he's got 6 assists and 3 goals in his 23 Premier League appearances, which is almost a goal involvement every other match. Which I had to think as a 22-year-old coming into a new club, higher level for him, settling in, adapting to a very different style of football. I think he's done all right. I think he's done absolutely fine. I mean, of course, you could look at the price tag and say, what is he, 47.5 million, something like that. But I don't know. In today's world, the price tags for some of these players that are underperforming are huge. And I think you're paying for potential for the future as well with someone like Johnson. And I said this before, Postecoglou loves him. Postecoglou thinks he's got such a bright future ahead of him. And you can see Sonny loves him as well. I asked about Postecoglou first about Johnson, and he said, I thought Brennan was good. I thought all of them were good tonight. In those moments, we work hard with our wide players to make sure they're in the right areas, and a couple of times tonight, we just weren't when the ball was flashed across. He's right. There were a few when Werner put one across, I remember, and there was no one there. Emerson... It's a difficult one. Emerson put a ball across for Sonny. You could argue he probably overhit it for Sonny more than there wasn't someone there. But yeah, I know what he means. There were a few occasions when they didn't have the people in there that they should have had. And he said Brennan did fantastically well to win back possession. And when he's played it across, it's the other winger that's there. From our perspective, that's a really important part because it's not by accident. Again, you've got to be there. And I thought Timo, he missed the chance in the first half and he was a constant threat to them and he was in the right area for the goal. And like I say, Sonny loves Brennan Johnson as well. Sonny thinks there's so much potential. And he's kind of taken him on almost as his unofficial kind of mentor type, like mentor protege, Jedi Master Padawan type thing going on there. He said about him, he said, I like this guy. I love this guy. This is Sonny about Brennan Johnson. I just want to help him as much as I can. Even when we start the game, I told him, just make sure you're ready. You'll make the difference. When you come on, you'll make the difference. And that's what we need. Mystic Sonny there. He absolutely knew. Brennan did a fantastic job. And I just want to give him a big, big hug. The goals, obviously, he is missing. But I'm definitely sure the way he works, working like this, the goals will come automatically. I'm 100% sure. Because that's the thing, he is a hard worker as well behind the scenes. If anyone's going to continue to learn and develop, it's Brennan Johnson. And he was actually asked, this was his Spurs interview, about out-muscling Anderson for the first goal. And he said, yeah, strong man, eh? He said, that impact is what we need, especially the way we play. We want to play high intensity. And especially someone who's coming off the bench has to make an impact like Brennan did and today. And he did with 2 amazing assists. So yeah, he's kind of becoming a bit of a super sub at the moment. But I think, in a way, that's building him piece by piece, his knowledge of what to do. I think Postecoglou said it before. Sometimes sitting out and seeing how the game plays out and where people are just gives you a little... Because he's played for Forest like almost starting every single game. So just to kind of see where the game is developing and where he can impact it when he comes on, I think it's building his knowledge of how to play in certain situations, and it's building his confidence with these assists and the goals, some of the late winners and things like that. And yeah, I think it won't be long before he's forcing his way back into the starting lineup. Because, again, the pace and the technique he's got are superb. Just about decision making, as all young players find that as well. It's not all just the young players as well, sometimes the older players as well. Timo Werner, he's 27. And I feel like sometimes when he gets into good positions, his decision making is a little bit iffy. I mean, as it was for the big chance he had yesterday, I felt for him because he took it so well into his stride. It was Bentancur who tackled the ball. Sonny whips the ball forward. Very Harry Kane-esque pass that he used to do for Sonny. Werner takes it kind of into his stride really nicely with a little flick forward. And then you kind of think, he's got so much time. You just know this is one of these where the world is already writing what's going to be an old team. Werner runs through. I wonder what happens next. And unfortunately he did. And it's one of those where, as Sonny showed at the end, and I think other strikers out there, you would take the early shot. As soon as the keeper starts to move position, you can see the gaps you've got either side. And it was like, oh, don't go to try and round him. Don't try and round him. Don't pass it in. You've got to kind of be confident and catch him unawares before he's really set himself. And obviously didn't. But what I thought was good was that he didn't let it define his match. You know, he could have done, because he could have just stood there thinking, oh, here we go again. Here we go. This is kind of what me in the Premier League. That's what people think of me. But he didn't. He kept plugging away and working so hard. And it was quite interesting. Sonny afterwards, I've noticed this. I think I've spoken about it before. Sonny in his interviews is very honest, to the point of not quite digging people out, but he makes it very clear what his standards are and what are required from other players. You know, he did it with Richarlison when he went away into the Asian Cup. He essentially said, yeah, Richarlison, he's got to step up and score the goals while I'm away. He's got to do that. And it was like, whoa, you're putting weight on his shoulders. And he responded really well, Richarlison, then, and scored all those goals. And yesterday, when he was talking about Timo Werner, you know, he wasn't shy to Sonny to bring up that miss. And he also kind of wasn't backwards in saying, you've got to, you know, don't celebrate this too much. You've got to keep going. This was his interview with Spurs TV. You could see he's so in his element right now, Sonny. I love it. He knows he is the leader of this team. And he said, I'm very, very happy for him. This is Timo Werner. He said he worked hard. Timo worked really hard. I wish he had scored in the first half to make the game a little easier. But yeah, he was very happy to score his first goal for Spurs. It was well deserved. And I hope many, many more to come. I hope it lifts him a little bit. When you miss a big chance like that, you feel like the world is against you. But Timo stepped up. He didn't give up and he played fantastically. Everyone is very happy for him. And I hope Timo enjoyed the goal that can help the team and lift him a little bit more. But he should never... He actually said celebrate this goal. I think he meant over-celebrate this goal, because the fans and the players are expecting more from him. So I hope he continues to work hard and help the team. To be honest, he didn't really have a chance to celebrate the goal. It was like quite a funny little moment. He ran off to the left to celebrate his goal in front of the South Stand. He's pointing across to Brennan Johnson to say, yeah. And I think he's looked up and realised, oh man, no one else. Oh, they're running back to the centre circle. Of course, yeah, we're only 1-1. And he spoke about it afterwards. He's quite funny. I quite like watching. He's got quite a dry sense of humour in his interviews. He said, I wanted to celebrate, but then I realised nobody was coming over. And I realised it was 1-1 and we had a bit of work to do still. Then I went straight back to the centre to try and get another goal. Of course, I was very happy in this moment. Very happy, especially after the first half when I missed that big chance. And I'm not sure whether he said palace or place here. So he either said a lot of the place was falling down on my shoulders, we would say in Germany, or a lot of the palace was falling down on my shoulders. He said, I enjoy, hopefully if there's any German people, they can tell me exactly what that expression is. He said, I enjoyed this moment to score my first goal at the stadium. And interestingly, he told the BBC after the game, I saw these quotes only today, he said, they, as in my teammates, stood behind me at half-time and said I should keep going. It always feels good that you have a group that says nothing about it. They were supportive. It helps me and the whole team. You could see that afterwards. They went straight up to him, a lot of the players. Sonny, I saw do it, kind of put his hand on his head as if to say, don't worry, it's just part of the game. We'll crack on. You'll get another chance. And he did. And he scored it. Because he needs that confidence. He did work really hard. The thing I was really pleased with him, and it's something you'll hear me kind of have a gripe sometimes about wingers, especially Spurs ones, is not running at the fullback. And he did that a lot. He really tried to roast the fullback, get behind him, get to the byline and pull the ball back, which is his job. That's what the Postecoglou wingers have to do. That's what Brennan Johnson did for the goal. And it's something that I don't think Kulusevski did enough yesterday. It wasn't one of his greatest performances. He did set up Sonny for the chance to hit the post. But I kind of felt like Werner was trying. Sometimes the final ball at the end of it wasn't great, but he was trying to run at his man each time. And like I say, not kind of letting the missed chance define him, I think was quite important. And I guess he's trying to learn how to play with his team as well. It's completely different to what he's had in the past. His link up with Destiny Udogie is still very much in the formative stages. Destiny Udogie didn't have the greatest game yesterday. He went on a lot of kind of rampaging kind of raids down the left-hand side, but didn't really know what to do with the end of it. He didn't seem to know exactly when to play it to Timo Werner. There were a few times when Werner would make a run, and that's the beauty of Werner with his pace. Yeah, he'll get caught offside a few times, but Udogie and Maddison can kind of look for those runs and they can set him away. And Udogie was quite hesitant a lot of times. And actually, I kind of felt, it may have very much been subconsciously, but after the miss, he wasn't really passing it to Werner much. Almost maybe a bit like, oh, he's wasting my time. But I don't think, I'm saying kind of subconsciously what I'm thinking. I don't think he would deliberately not pass to him. But I felt he was looking inside far more. And that was why the ball was kind of, the play was bottlenecking in the middle a little bit. And like I said earlier, when you've got a back five, you need someone like Werner to run past a player or two, and suddenly that opens up gaps at everyone else because those players have come out of position in other areas. So yeah, the Doggy one, it had moments where it started to kind of work, but there were probably more moments when it didn't. And the same with Maddison. Maddison's got to look for those runs and pick him out and play him through, because he will put him away. He really will every time as he gets sharper as well. And I think he said, I've got some quotes actually. He said, I think the team is starting to understand me as a player. This is Werner. I think it gets even better, especially the link up with Dest on the left gets better and better. And also with Madders as a number 10, he's always looking for me. I think Sonny is a bit of a different player in the centre than Richie, and the link up with both of them gets better and better. So I feel even more comfortable on the pitch to play in this team and get even more included in the attacks. Postecoglou was happy with him. He's got a real thing. If you ask Postecoglou about attackers scoring goals, he knows he can't dismiss scoring goals for an attacker, because it is an important part of it, but he kind of is always very keen to stress everything around that he wants from them. And I remember him saying this about Richarlison before he went on that goal streak, and it may just be a ploy to kind of keep the players feeling confident and not concerned or worried about a lack of goals. But yeah, he said, I understand that with attacking players, goals makes them feel better and it makes them more confident, and I guess it relieves the pressure on them a little bit. But just in general, I thought Werner was really aggressive with his running, kept taking on the fullback, and I thought apart from the missed chance, his general play was really good. A goal always helps. It was pleasing for us, and it was an important time in the game, and it was great for him to score. So Werner, 6 games back in the Premier League, he's got 2 assists and a goal. I think there was one that really should have been an assist that he didn't get it for because of some daft reason. I can't remember what it was now. But yeah, he's going to get more and more comfortable the longer he plays in this team. Yeah, I do feel like we are in this era now, aren't we? Especially with social media, we just write off players so early. And I've seen people saying, don't make his contract permanent, don't do this. What I would say is everything Werner says is about we and us and looking forward to the future. I don't think he's got any intention that he's not going to be at Spurs next season. And I said it a million times, I still think 15 million, even if he just has a kind of an average rest of the season, is such a good deal. I think Spurs would probably be able to make that back in the future. Look, I know it's not a business thing. Well, it is in a way, but it's not what we want to see it as. I think Werner's going to contribute far more as this season goes on. I think he's going to, keep playing his part. And yeah, let's see what that goal does. It could kind of be a kind of a real moment for him when it all starts to really click for Spurs. And yeah, next time he goes through, maybe he'll have that in mind rather than the missed chance. We'll see. I can imagine for a player like Werner, with the criticism he's had, he's running through on chances like that, and there's a million thoughts going through his head and worries and fears. Whereas with Sonny, and I've got some quotes from him on his 1v1, he's probably shutting out all of that now. He's experienced enough to not worry about that sort of stuff. And look, talking to Sonny, it was, as I said earlier, it's the captains that stepped up. They were there when the Spurs needed them. Postecoglou said of them, brilliant. It's in those kind of moments you're looking for leaders, and our last 2 goals came from the 3 leaders we've got in the group. I think it's a testament to them and their strength of character. Like I say, Maddison clever ball through to Romero for the goal. Maddison's still not where he was yet, and that's understandable. He missed almost 3 months of football. But he still can produce those little moments of magic, a little clever ball, and this was one of those, I felt. And I think if you're going to try and break down teams that are very stubborn and defensive and all of that, you need a Maddison. Maybe you need another Maddison or 2 to do that. And I mean, I was looking at his stats. He's got 11 goal involvements in 16 Premier League appearances in a Spurs shirt so far. 8 assists and 3 goals. Yeah, which is more than decent. It's kind of well on his way, really. And like I say, when he gets sharp again, think you'll see a lot more from him. In those first 10, 11 games of the season, he was kind of running things for Spurs, and that will come back as well. His other vice-captain, Romero, 4th goal of the season for him. You can see what it meant to him. He went mad with celebrations. He was kind of... he was like doing the old showing the badge, and Richarlison actually ran up the pitch and leaped on his shoulders as well, which shows not only that his knee hopefully isn't that bad, but also the fact that he, how far have they come from that awkward canteen meeting when he first signed, after obviously they had a bit of pops at each other in the past on the pitch. And now, he's running up the pitch to jump on the shoulders of the Argentines. So, yeah, I think just the whole bond with Romero and the club feels like it's really grown under Postecoglou. He feels really an important part of Spurs, not just as a player, but as a leader. And that's huge for him. It was exactly what he needed, I think, at this stage in his career. There were some quotes. The Matchday programme, if you haven't seen it, has got a really good interview with Romero in it. And he spoke about Postecoglou. He said he's a great coach and I'm enjoying things greatly under him. He has a great playing style and his tactical ideas are very good. We're all enjoying it and buying into the way he plays. The fact that the club did this shows it's another step in the right direction. He's providing everything we need to make this step. Winning depends on a lot of things, not just the team and the staff, making sure the club as a whole is on the right road. He's given me the hope that I can continue myself and become a better player. And that's huge, because Postecoglou, every time you talk to him about, he loves like Van de Ven. He thinks it's got great potential. Same with Dragusin as well, who, we're still to see. And that's kind of shows as much of how Van de Ven and Romero are playing together and what a partnership they're becoming. But if you ask him about Romero, he will instantly tell you he's one of the best in the world. He loves him, Postecoglou. I mean, he is a World Cup winner, but he will tell you he's one of the best in the world. And what I think is really interesting is that as a sign of Romero kind of growing and learning is, I think this season we'll probably think like, oh, crazy Romero, got that red card against Chelsea. But I think, again, like I said at the start of this, if we take a step back and look at it kind of from the big picture, Romero had that. Other than that, he's had 4 yellow cards this season. He hasn't received a single yellow card in 2024 yet, and we're into March. The way he plays and the way we assume he's going to pick up bookings and things like that, he doesn't. And there were a few moments yesterday when I saw, I can't remember, it might have been Mateta, someone was trying to wind him up and they were jostling with him, they're giving little elbows, and he just went to get the ball and play it quickly, especially second half. It was almost like someone had told him, every time you get the ball, get it quickly, take a quick kick, get them moving before they set their position, Palace. And I've noticed that about it. I do think his discipline, is going to get sent off at Villa Park or something, but I do think on the whole, his decision-making and his discipline has been so much better. And he said in this interview, he said, it's something I've worked on. I've realised I've been picking up too many cards at some points here and there. When you're a defender, you have to tackle. My style has lent itself to picking up cards in the past, but through working on it, you can try to eradicate certain things. Maybe daft yellow cards for protesting too much or clashing with someone. With the style of defender I am, those clashes can be unavoidable sometimes if you have a face-off with someone, but I respect every opponent and team I play against. And whatever clash happens, it stays on the field. I've been working on it and hopefully eradicating some of those cards. He has. He had, last season we were talking about, he was in double figures in cards, wasn't he? It was ridiculous. This season, like I say, yes, the red card was daft and he could have got 2 in that game, but 4 yellow cards this season, that's, that is a man improving and trying to change that side of his game as well. Alongside him, Mickey van der Ven, like I say, I did think we were going to see Radu Dragusin. I don't know, it was like, I say that, but then so what happened was, Mickey van der Ven went for this quite awkward challenge on Mateta. He got the ball really well. It was one of those classic ones where he sprints back, gets the ball. But he kind of went into it awkward. It looked like he really hurt his left ankle. And he tried to play on, and we could see he was really heavily limping. And then the next break of play, he kind of sat down and started signalling to the bench. And we all just thought, wow, it's kind of game over for him. And Postecoglou sent first Ben Davies out and then Dragusin. And it'd have been interesting to see what the reaction would have been to whichever decision he'd made, because Ben Davies probably is the natural replacement as the left-sided centre-back. That's where he's played this season. But obviously Dragusin can play on the left, and I think the fans probably would have gone mad if they brought in this new signing and not turned to him first. So yeah, I'm intrigued to see what will happen when that eventually does occur. But fair play to Van de Ven. He got a bit of treatment, and we thought he was going to come off. He didn't. He stayed on, and you could just kind of see him run it off. Whether it swells up today, his ankle, as any of us that have kind of played football at any level knows, that sometimes adrenaline gets you through something you don't feel something, and then afterwards you wake up the next morning like, oh my God, I'm dying. And yeah, we'll see what happens with him. But I thought he was excellent after that. Just 22 years old. It's disgraceful how good kind of someone can be at 22 years old. We're talking about Brennan Johnson, the impact he's making, but also with with that as well. I was wondering that's quite interesting. The Spurs Twitter account put out a clip today of like highlight of the game or something, and it was Maddison doing a bit of an iffy nutmeg that just about gets through, and then he goes on the floor, and it is like the worst highlight reel I've ever seen. And people have pointed out that Maddison has replied to it saying that's the best clip you could find, with lots of laughy faces. I mean, it's a foul, but geez, it's not exactly highlight reel material. Laughy crying face. And it does show you that it was a foul. But I did think that at the time. I was like, wow, that was not exactly the greatest clip I've ever seen in my life. But it's quite funny. He's actually taken a mickey out of it himself. Van de Ven, yeah, he's such a good player. He really is such a good player. And the scary thing for attackers everywhere is that hopefully he's only going to get better as well and develop. And I can't remember what Postecoglou was talking about. It was either pre-match or post-match, but I remember hearing kind of just saying about how much he's learning on the training pitch, even just during the time he's been at Spurs since coming from Wolfsburg, how much he's learned during that time and improved, and he's got the potential to be one of the best in the world. He really has. Postecoglou was talking about Romero like that, and this is why I can get the excitement about wanting to see Dragusin, but when you've got two players who are right up there in the Premier League's best defenders, they really deserve more clean sheets. But I mean, yesterday was unfortunate. Any other day that free kick doesn't go in, and that's a clean sheet because Palace was snuffed out pretty much every other time they got forward. But there's been too many of those, I suppose. Those little if it wasn't for that moments. But Sonny, I wanted to talk about Sonny as well. Back in the centre of attack, Richarlison had that knee injury, so Sonny went back in there. We did wonder before the game, he played very well there at the start of the season. I did feel that at times you could see there's different aspects to it. You could see that Spurs tried to release him and he would come deep and play clever passes like the one he did for Werner. At other times you could also see that Spurs did miss out slightly on Richarlison's ability to hold up the ball. And also you can sling balls into the box slightly higher because he's more dominant in the air, Richarlison. But it's just classic Sonny that he comes up so big in the moments you need him to. Like I say, the pass to Werner was fantastic. Hitting the post as well was just kind of his classic first-time shot. Yeah, of course, it didn't go in, so I can't praise it too much, but it's about getting into those areas. And then to sprint away in whatever it was, 89th minute, something like 88th minute, he actually spoke about it. He said, I looked calm, but I'm nervous, really. To be honest, I was a little bit tired because I had to make a 50-metre run. I had to make good contact getting in front of the defender so he can't touch me. Otherwise, he gets a red card and we have that benefit. But in front of goal, when I'm 1v1 with the keeper, I tried to stay as calm as possible and not get excited too much. When you're excited, most of the time you're missing the ball, so you don't hit it as well as you expect. I wanted to stay as calm as possible and try to hit the bottom corner, which I did. I was very happy to score again since I came back from the Asian Cup, and to celebrate with the fans makes me even more happier. So Sonny's stats are ridiculous now. Well, they have been in each game. 19 goal involvements in 23 Premier League games this season. 13 goals, 6 assists. I looked at it expecting to see Erling Haaland a million goals ahead. He's actually only 4 ahead of Sonny in the Golden Boot race. He's played 2 games more, Sonny. But yeah, he's still up there. He goes and gets a hat-trick in a game, which would be wonderful. Maybe at Villa Park would be nice. And then suddenly he's right up there at the top of the goal-scoring list, or among them anyway. And And like I said earlier, I love the fact that he's relishing being a leader. I feel like Sonny's always been a class player for Spurs, always been terrific for them in big moments and kind of taking on responsibility maybe when the star player, Harry Kane, was out. But now he's the star, he's the leader. And I think I've said this before, but because he does it for his country, I think it's easier for him. He's had the hopes of a nation rest on his shoulders. The hopes of Spurs fans probably doesn't feel quite as huge a monumental thing, a burden to carry. So, yeah, he loves it. And there's a funny little moment when a reporter asked Postecoglou about Sonny's obviously dislocated his finger, didn't he, while on international duty with the ping pong incident, and he was asked like, is he okay? Is his finger okay? Because he's still got the strapping on it. And Postecoglou's answer was, "It's a finger. Even if he loses it, it won't really matter. He can still play. He's fine." In a bit of one of those moments where in the moment he said it like really deadpan. But then when he had to answer the question next, I think it was my question next, asked about Pat Matasar, you could see he was kind of almost chuckling to himself. He was like, yeah, that was a funny one, wasn't it? I've come out with a kind of a bit of a zinger there. He's a funny chap, Postecoglou. He's just this kind of weird paradox of a guy who is utterly awful in small talk situations by his own admission, will not sit and have a chat with anyone without it being really awkward. Famously will only speak to people for a minute or so he can get the maximum impact in what he wants to say. Stick him in front of a packed room and have him as the kind of speaker, and suddenly he's just a completely different person. It's so strange. I wonder where that comes from. The ability to speak publicly so well, with humour, with the way that you watch him and you think, I think Sean Dyche said, it'd be great to have a beer with. But by all the sounds of it, he's maybe not great to have a beer with. I'm sure with his close mates he's known for years and years, he must be at least able to hold decent conversations. But I think he can be a little bit of a kind of an awkward character. So I do find it fascinating when he does stuff like this and comes out with this. And like I say, we sat down with him for 45 minutes, maybe just under an hour in Perth last summer. I think when you're firing questions at him and answering, it's absolutely fine. But if you were to sit next to him, because he admitted it actually that occasion that he was doing, I watched him do like a breakfast Q&A. He went and did that and he said, I'm absolutely fine doing that 45 minutes. But then after that, I had to go and sit at a table while people were eating and just chat and make small talk. And I hated it. It's a funny little part of him. It really is. But yeah, no, he was. His Friday press conference was a little bit flat ahead of the game. It was one of those where I think because we got the Richarlison news about his knee injury early on, it was a bit like, okay, we got the line. And maybe the questions weren't great. I mean, mine were just about injury stuff, about Manor Solomon, Cess, stuff like that. So maybe, probably our fault that we didn't really bring much out of him. But yeah, he was post-match, maybe with a win under his belt. He was, he was in good form again. What else was I going to talk about? The midfield, good and bad moments. Like I say, Maddison's still finding his sharpness. We know because you let it slip in an answer once that Basuma and Bentancur is the partnership that I think Postecoglou kind of has planned of seeing at some point. When we saw that Bentancur was in the starting lineup with Basuma, rather than we kind of all thought it was going to be one or the other, I think the thinking I kind of tried to justify it with was maybe with Emerson being a less attacking right back, they've decided, okay, well, Bentancur can pick out a pass. He can be a bit of a playmaker as well, so maybe having him behind Kulusevski, he can send Kulusevski away or Sonny through the middle with a pass that maybe Sarr can't. Although Sarr has played some lovely passes as well. But I actually felt it worked the other way in the game, that actually they missed Sarr's ability to run on. And then, Kulusevski can play it onto Sarr because Sarr's running past him or running inside, whereas he didn't have that with Bentancur. Bentancur wasn't doing those driving runs that he would score so many goals last season from, and actually scored against Man United this time around as well. Obviously, we now know, because I asked the question, actually, it was one of my questions after the match. I saw Sarr, he sat down on the pitch at the full-time whistle. He only came on for the last, came on about the 82nd minute, something like that. And he was sat down on the kind of floor, looking really uncomfortable. And he was kind of hopping up and down on his backside, if you can hop up and down on your backside. And he just looked really uncomfortable. Physio went over to him, and Postecoglou went over to him and asked him if he was okay. So I thought, I'll have a little ask, see what happened. And he said he had a bit of a back issue since he got back from the Africa Cup of Nations. He's been dealing with it, and it's getting better, but it's not sort of totally free. So it's something we're working on with him. It doesn't stop him training. He's still been training, but it does restrict him. It's something we're constantly working on, but from what I understand, he'll be fine. Like I said, he hasn't missed training, so it's just something we're working on with him. Back problems are right pain in the back, for want of any better expression. Myself, obviously playing at a far, far, far lower level, I used to sometimes get some back problems while playing, and they can go away and you can feel absolutely fine in the next game. All you need to do is just slightly tweak it, and and he did. He looked very much in pain on the pitch as well. So I think that will probably have also played a part in the team selection to begin with as well. And whether he plays against Villa Park, we'll see. It's 8 days, obviously. It gives him a bit of time to work on it. But like I said, Bentancur's still not back to where he was yet. Had some good moments like the tackle that led to Werner's chance. Had some iffy moments like kind of having to get back. And you could argue that he kind of took one for the team in bringing down Eze. And on any other day, Eze doesn't curl that free kick into the top corner, but he did. So it ends up looking like a dangerous free kick to give away. I kind of turned to George from PA and said straight away, it's like, that's a rubbish area to give away a free kick in. You'd almost have let him to try and take a shot, I think, because it was very in the kind of area that free kick takers love. And yeah, he did run out of steam a little bit as well. And I felt there were times when Basuma was in the number 6, they were kind of trying to alternate at times who was in the 6 role. And when Basuma was there, Bentancur looked a little bit lost. He's got to almost learn that 8 role in a 3. I mean, he may well have played it in the past, but maybe in the Postecoglou system, it's just quite a different one for him. I thought Basuma was good. I actually thought Basuma was quite decent. I thought that was probably one of the best performances in a little while from him. He looked in control at all times. I've got his stats here somewhere. Defensively, he made 2 tackles, 1 interception, 2 clearances, and 2 aerial duels. Only Romero touched the ball more times than him on the pitch than anyone else in the game. Romero had 131 touches, Basuma 128. Same with the passes. Romero made 124 and Basuma 115. And you just feel like when Basuma's in control, not much is getting past him, and Spurs will be in control of the ball as well. I thought he was a really important aspect. I still think he needs to get back to driving forward with the ball and taking opposition players out of action and leaving space for others. But defensively, you do kind of miss him when he's not there. I've said that before in terms of his tackles and stuff like that. And so if Bentancur can get sharp again, Basuma can continue to improve, Maddison can get sharp again. This is the thing. It's kind of like my hope is that Spurs are going to get sharper and sharper as they reach the end of this season. Hopefully just in time, important games and everything. That's the dream. Whether it happens or not is another thing, but that's the hope. Obviously, when we talk about the number 8s, you're going to have Lucas Bergvall on his way in the summer as another option there as well. And the reason I bring him up is because Daniel Levy had a special guest in the chairman's suite yesterday, and that was the Djurgården sporting director, where Lucas Bergvall is coming from and currently playing, Boss Anderson. He was a special guest there. Full VIP treatment. I saw he took selfies with Daniel Levy, with Sonny as well. And I'd imagine he'll be there more often in the future, because the aim is for the 2 clubs to create this partnership going forward, which is, exchanging ideas, coaching ideas, young players perhaps going in different directions as well to increase their experience. So, I just thought it was quite interesting that he was there, enjoying the delights of the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium and all the VIP treatment. I think he used to be a striker himself, Boss Anderson, in Swedish football. I think he played for Braga as well. I remember looking him up a few weeks back. Now it's all kind of eyes on, I think I've covered every player there. Vicario, like I say, didn't have too much to do. But yeah, for me, key man was Brennan Johnson in changing the game. He was made a massive impact, really. Emerson, I haven't really mentioned Emerson too much. Emerson defensively very good again. Not much got past him. Bear in mind he was up against Eze a lot of the time as well. I thought he did well. Mateta would go down that side. Attacking wise, you know kind of what you're going to get from him. He's not going to be able to do certain things that, say, Porro's going to bring to the team. But I thought defensively he did very well. Was one of the better kind of probably players in the first half in terms of what he did. Yeah, and that's it really. I think I've covered pretty much everyone in the team. So like I say, now looking ahead to Villa. Yeah, it's massive. It's such a big game. When I last looked at the Villa Luton or Villa at Luton score when I was on the train coming back, it was 2-0 to Villa. I didn't think anything of it. I was like, fair enough. And it was only when I got back, I was like, oh my goodness, Luton almost grabbed a point. I didn't realise it had gone back to 2-2, and then Lucas Dean scored that late goal for them. So yeah, Villa kind of maintained their advantage, which kind of shows what a big match the Palace game was for Spurs. It was one of those they just had to win. They had to really, if they hadn't, that would have been a huge gap to Villa, and it kind of would have taken a lot of the pressure off of Villa for that game next Sunday. Whereas now they know that Spurs win that, they got the game in hand. Suddenly they're 2 points behind with a game in hand, and it does put pressure on them. And they've got to play against Ajax on the Thursday night as well. So yeah, yesterday was finding a way through was so important. And 8 days time, you're probably going to have Pedro Porro back, by the way that Postecoglou was talking, and he will bring another kind of string to the bow for Spurs attacks, especially against Villa, kind of trying to open them up. Richarlison, we'll see. It depends who you speak to, essentially, what's happened with Richarlison. Postecoglou gave 2 different answers on Friday. He gave one to Spurs in their club interview where he said 2 to 3 weeks. Then he came into the press conference and told us 3 to 4 weeks. Then later that night, the Brazil called up Richarlison, and Dorival Jr., the Brazil boss, said he was only going to miss 1 match, which obviously would make him back in contention for Villa. And Postecoglou was asked after the game, is he going to go away with Brazil then? Despite the fact that, they said he would be back after the international break, Spurs. He said, no idea. We've still got, 2 weeks to go before then? As I said yesterday, it's 2 to 3 weeks. And then he was kind of asked about, is there any chance he could be back before that? He was like, mate, I'm not a doctor. I don't write prescriptions. I get sort of a guide and I go from there. It's week-to-week proposition. But with national teams, it's pretty clear. If they want him to present himself, he'll present himself. If they deem him fit, he goes. If not, he comes back to us. It's not one where, well, look, I'm not going to try and do something tricky with it. If he's ready to go, he goes. If he's not, he'll be with us. It'll be a fine line from what I understand so far. I think I said 3 to 4 weeks. It happened a week ago, so it will be in that ballpark. So, yeah, I suppose, yeah, he could argue that's what he meant, that it was a week on from when he did actually speak about it as well. But then enter Richarlison to muddy it that a little bit more. He rocked up in the mix zone area, wearing one of the retro tops that, funnily enough, I'd just seen in the Megastore. It was the old pony one that I kind of associate with David Ginola in that era. And Richarlison was rocking it. Looked very cool. And he spoke to the Brazilian media in the mix zone. They'll often do that, even when they're not, I think just because they know them so well. Even when they're not playing, they'll have a little chat. And the Brazilian journalist João Castelo Branco, as ESPN Brazil said, because he did an interview with Richarlison, he wrote on Twitter, he's already returning to training and says he has even a chance to return in the next round. I must admit, that was why I was a bit wary of going too strong on Richarlison's injured when we kind of started to hear. I knew he was injured, but I didn't think it was that bad because I was told that on Friday, I think it was Friday, so either Thursday or Friday, it might have been Thursday, that he was seen doing running at Hotspur Way. Which, yeah, if your knee's awful, you probably don't put too much pressure on it. I know knees are more about twisting and turning rather than straight line running, but yeah, the fact that he was kind of doing some individual work showed that it maybe wasn't the worst thing in the world. And then Postecoglou said 3 to 4 weeks. I was like, oh, fair enough. But yeah, if you get a chance, watch the João Castelo Branco's social media feed. He's obviously was a video interview he's in because it's ESPN. And he starts to do the interview. Is interrupted by James Maddison, who comes up behind Richarlison, hugs him, kisses him on the back of the head, and then I think he's with Alan Dixon, I think he's called team manager nowadays. In the back in the day, he was called the player liaison officer. He goes off with Maddison, and they're waiting in the lift. So just to kind of paint the area is. So you come out of the changing rooms. There's a little mix zone area, or quite a big mix zone area actually. And then at the bottom of that, there's a lift where behind the lift is the atrium and the West Stand. You know, go out onto the high street, or you've got these lifts that go up to. I'm presuming Maddison was heading up to his suite where his family are. You might have seen it. It's all very coolly painted in Tottenham, and his family stuff. I think his dogs are there, his kids maybe, murals on the walls. So it's very cool. So as he's waiting for the lift doors to close, he starts singing the Richarlison chant that used to be at Everton. It's been slightly modified with his figure. It was 50 million when he was at Everton. It's 60 million now, obviously with Spurs. It's to the tune of She's Electric by Oasis. I can't say it because it's got a swear word in it. But it's very cool. Have a little listen to it if you want. And you can just see while he's waiting. And Richarlison finishes it off by singing his own name at the end. It's a really lovely little moment. So we'll see whether Richarlison is available or not to face Villa. It's anyone's guess at the moment. Everyone's saying different, different amounts of time. I mean, look, if he's on the bench as an option to bring into a game just for his height at either end of the pitch, I'm not saying he's going to play in defence, but, you know, when you're defending set pieces and he's on the pitch, he can be very helpful from that as well. The key thing is, I guess, they've got to go there as aggressive. They've got to show intensity. They've got to make use of the fact that they'll have had 8 days to prepare for the game, whereas Villa have had, you know, they'll fly back from Ajax. They'll get back on the Friday. They'll essentially have probably one, even that's a recovery day Friday. So they'll probably have Saturday to work ahead of the game, and even that has to be a light session because it's the pre-match session. So, yeah, Spurs kind of have to take advantage of hopefully having better energy levels as well. It doesn't always work. We've seen Spurs going to be horrendous against a team that's only played a couple of days beforehand. But yeah, they've got to. I was about to say they've got to win. They've got to come away with a positive result. Look, win, like I say, they're 2 points behind. They've got a game in hand. Lose 8 points with a game in hand, and suddenly becomes a lot of a trickier prospect. Draw, I guess Villa can keep them at arm's length with that, but it's not a disaster purely because of the amount of games that Villa have got to play coming up. Both of them are quite a few tough games left to come, Villa and Spurs. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what the Ajax game takes out, and we could kind of do with that being quite a tight game. That means there's also the second leg to think about as well, just to give them as many possible things to think about, really. Timo Werner said after the game, he was talking about Villa, he said, I think the 3 points kept the pressure on them, and if we win next week there, which is what we should do if we want to play Champions League next season, then it will be tough for them. And with one game in hand, it will be good for us. The defence are going to have to be at their best. Ollie Watkins is having the season of his life. He's a good player, but my goodness, his season has been incredible. 21 goals and 12 assists in 37 matches. Pretty much, injury aside, has booked his place on the plane for the Euros. I need to play and do some of it's being over here. Is it? Oh, I'm trying to remember what the Euros are. Is it a bit spread out? Oh, I'm going to have to look like because I look like a right muppet then, and I get loads of people commenting underneath like, how do you not know where the Euros are? It's because my brain's... Every summer I think more about Spurs and pre-season. And where they are. Oh yeah, I'm very aware. As I turn to the left, I must apologise. In the last video, I didn't realise every time I looked at the bookshelf when someone was asking me what books I read, oh my goodness, I pretty much shoved my head right into the camera. It was not the most pleasant sight for anyone. I don't think any human's back of their head or top of their head should ever be that close to it. Oh, it's Germany. What am I talking about? I'm getting my 10 world-class stadiums in Germany. Yeah, like I say, international football, sometimes my brain just switches off to it. I've got another international break coming up. But Ollie Watkins, yeah, he is going to be an absolute handful. He's going to be... up there with the toughest tests, that the defence have had to deal with this season. Although it's quite interesting when you think back, it was Ollie Watkins and Unai Emery after the game at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium against Villa that both admitted Villa absolutely got away with it. First half, Spurs blew them away with so many chances and didn't score. So Spurs know how, and that was an under-strength Spurs as well. That was back in November. That was when they were not at their strongest. So to have gone there, if they can go there and produce something similar, it's a noisy place to play. It's a good crowd, Villa Park. Spurs travelling fans are going to no doubt bring their usual fantastic noise, but it's always a tough place to go. I remember when they had Gerrard at the boss, the first half was so difficult against Villa with the noise and the way they played, and just Spurs suddenly found a way through and they battered them in the second half. But yeah, under Unai Emery, obviously they're a very different proposition, and they're going to have a lot of the ball as well, while trying to kind of also exploit maybe the way Spurs play with balls over the top to Watkins and stuff like that, and Leon Bailey's pace as well. It's going to be a tough game. They need to turn around, not have a 2-1 defeat this time. They need to turn it around, and it's one I'm slightly worried about, but that might be a good thing. I think when I go into a game with any kind of confidence, it's always horrendous. So I think maybe going there with a little bit of worry about the match is probably not the worst thing in the world. But Spurs have got to be better. They're kind of still continuing this process. They're not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. There's still a lot to work on. Like I say, I've seen some people still going quite hard on yesterday's game. And obviously the first half did feel like another one of those first halves. But I do think we often make these judgments without giving much credit to the opposition. And, whether you like that kind of football or not, Palace did their job for a long period in terms of shutting up shop and not letting Spurs through and just packing their half with bodies. And I guess it's about being a bit cuter in the way they play and the way they deal with that. And Villa will be different. Villa are not going to sit back at home like that. That will create a more open game. And for Spurs, then it's going to be about being clinical and lethal with the ball when they get it. And hopefully the confidence for some of those players, the likes of Werner, Son obviously hitting the back of the net, Maddison being creative, Brennan Johnson with his impact as well. I'm intrigued to see whether, does he continue with Kulusevski again? Does he get another chance, or does Brennan Johnson work his way into the team because of his performance? Tough one, that. I'm intrigued to see where he goes then. What does he do with the midfield? If Sarr's in a position, does he come back in? You'd imagine he would. Porro, you think, comes back in. So, Spurs have got a chance to at least have quite a strong team out there, barring any training ground injuries this week. But hey, they won. It's a good thing. This is why I didn't really want this video to be kind of too much of a critical of aspects of yesterday, because ultimately they got the job done. They did what they needed to do. 26 games, they've won 15 of them. They've drawn 5. They've only lost 6 out of them in the Premier League. They're the league's 5th highest scorer, but obviously they've played a game less than a couple of those teams. They've actually only conceded 2 less than Villa. Villa have 37 conceded, Spurs 39 conceded, but Villa do have a 6-goal better goal difference, and obviously they're 5 points ahead with Spurs having that one game in hand. Like I say, Man U and City about to play could really do with United not winning that game. And if they lose, Spurs will have a game in hand and still be 6 points ahead of them as well, and have a goal difference which will be vastly superior. And then behind that, yes, funny because Brighton are having a very strange season. Either they're 10-9-8 is their stats, like 1-10, drawn 9, lost 8, very inconsistent. Newcastle, we know, 1-12, lost 11. They're very inconsistent. West Ham are kind of a bit all over the place as well. West Ham got a -4 goal difference despite being 7th. I think we're almost at the stage where you can not stop looking behind you, because you really can't afford to do that, but really, really focus on what's above you instead. But yeah, needs to be a big performance. Needs to continue this progress. And like I said, I do think while Villa will create chances, and that's the key for Spurs, is stopping them taking them. They will be a team which I think will see better going forward from Spurs against, as we did in the game at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in November. So we'll see what it brings. We shall. Like I said before, a bit in previous videos, a bit too early probably to do a loan roundup. There's not enough players that have played yet. There's a few Sunday games to come. Whether I do one in midweek, we'll see. We'll see how the week pans out and what else is to come. Hasn't really been too much else around the game to talk about that I can think of. No, nothing springs to mind really. So that's probably a good place to end it. A bit of a better length there, rather than the hour and a half feature film specials, just over the hour, for you to watch at some point on your Sunday or in the days ahead. Yeah, like I said, we'll see whether we do a midweek. If something else happens, probably won't do one if it's just the loan roundup to talk about. But Spurs, something will happen over these coming days. As always, pop questions into the comments in case I do one. But if I don't, I will see you next weekend. And no, actually, it'll probably be Monday, won't it? Because the game's on the Sunday. So yeah, the video won't be until the Monday night, probably. So yeah, if not until then, enjoy your week. Stay healthy, stay safe, look after yourselves. I shall catch you later. Goodbye.